I have created a virtual tour where you will feel like you are in Israel, not with me, but with Yeshua. I have traveled to Israel so many times that I have all kinds of images and video clips that I use to make the virtual tour. And the title of this first tour is From Capernaum to the Cross. We tend to focus on the crucifixion and resurrection, but Yeshua left Capernaum to go to Jerusalem 6 days before the beginning of the Passover. He was crucified on the day before Passover began at sundown. So there's a lot to this story. In fact, I had to create it in 2 parts, but I'll do both parts now. The first part follows Yeshua from Capernaum, where he was living with Peter in the house of Peter and Peter's mother. Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of a typical fisherman's house in Capernaum, but after the death of Yeshua, the house was enlarged with an apse in the front. Peter became a leader of the early Christians, and his house in Capernaum was apparently expanded to accommodate large gatherings of Christian believers who were worshiping the Messiah. So you will be able to see where Yeshua was living with Peter in Capernaum. Part 1 starts 6 days before the Passover began and takes us on Yeshua's 2-day journey to Jericho and then to Bethany. Interesting events happen in both places. Then we will follow Yeshua as he enters Jerusalem on the 4th day before the Passover began. Part 2 covers the 3rd and 2nd days before the beginning of Passover, when numerous significant things happen. Day 1, which was the day before the Passover began at sundown, is when Yeshua was crucified. We will follow him from Gethsemane, where he was arrested, to the Sanhedrin, which was the high court of Jewish law that sat in the treasury building on the Temple Mount. Here Yeshua was found guilty of blasphemy because he had said the temple would be destroyed and he would raise it again in 3 days. However, the Sanhedrin was not allowed by Roman law to impose the death penalty. So the members of the Sanhedrin sent Yeshua to the Roman governor Pilate, whose palace was on the other side of the city. Now, in the virtual tour, you're going to be able to go with Yeshua for all these events. Here Yeshua was found guilty of insurrection against the Roman authorities. What was the evidence? Well, when he rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, a large crowd followed him, praising the King of Israel. They believed that he was fulfilling the prophecy of Zechariah, who had declared for God that their king would appear on a donkey to establish the kingdom of God. As I was working on this virtual tour, I could feel what was happening in the days before the crucifixion and resurrection, and I was really excited because I became part of what was happening. I also discovered some things that I either had not known before or that I only knew in a surface way. For example, do you know the significance of nard, the oil that Mary poured on the feet of Yeshua? It is a fragrant oil that was used as an incense offering when preparing a body for burial. Do you think Mary knew that Yeshua was about to die? And what about the story of the fig tree? The Bible tells us that when Yeshua left Bethany with his disciples, he was hungry. But wait a minute. Do you hear the paradox? Passover typically occurs in April, which is too early for the fig tree to be bearing fruit. Actually, there are 2 harvests of figs in Israel, one late in June and again in early September, so it would have been impossible for Yeshua to find fruit on the fig tree. This startling information leads to deeper meaning, which I explain in the virtual tour. Where will you find this virtual tour? Here on Facebook, starting on Tuesday, April 6th. But I also encourage you to go to the Bible Interact website, because you will not only find the virtual tour there, but we will be sharing more about this extraordinary season when we celebrate Easter and Passover. You will also find a free downloadable booklet on the website that will take you on this virtual tour. So may you become as excited as I was traveling with Yeshua from Capernaum to the cross. Shalom.